The distant star cluster glowed like scattered diamonds against the void as Lieutenant Raven Blackwood guided her patrol vessel through the outer rim. After 3 months of routine surveillance, she'd grown accustomed to the silence of deep space. The soft hum of the engines and occasional beeping from the sensor array were her only companions. "Contact detected," the ship's AI announced, breaking the monotony. "Unknown configuration, bearing 035. Raven straightened in her chair, dark eyes fixed on the holographic display. "Show me." A ghostly image materialized before her, a vessel unlike anything in human records. Its hull bore an organic quality, with sweeping curves that seemed to flow like liquid metal. But what caught her attention were the clear signs of damage. Great tears in the hull plating and crystalline formations that suggested exposure to extreme cold. "Life signs?" she asked, already plotting an intercept course. "One signature detected, extremely faint. The vessel appears to be operating on minimal power reserves. Protocol dictated she should report the discovery and await instructions. But out here, 16 light years from the nearest outpost, waiting could mean death for whoever was aboard that ship." Raven made her decision. "Log the following. Emergency protocol enacted under Article 7 of the Deep Space Rescue Accord. Beginning rescue operation." As she maneuvered closer, more details became apparent. The vessel was easily twice the size of her patrol ship, its silver-blue hull adorned with intricate patterns that could only be writing in an unknown script. The damage looked worse up close. Whatever had happened here hadn't been an accident. Docking proved challenging with the ship's artificial gravity offline, but Raven had always excelled at the impossible. The airlock sealed with a satisfying hiss, and environmental readings showed breathable atmosphere inside. She checked her sidearm and emergency kit before stepping through. The interior was as alien as the exterior, with corridors that curved organically and surfaces that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Her boots made no sound on the strange flooring as she followed the life sign reading on her scanner. She found the bridge, or what she assumed was the bridge. After 10 minutes of careful exploration, the chamber was circular, with what appeared to be control interfaces floating in midair, their holographic displays dim but still functional. And there in the center stood a crystalline pod that pulsed with a faint blue light. Raven approached cautiously, wiping frost from the transparent surface. Inside was a figure that confirmed her suspicions. This was first contact. The alien appeared humanoid, but was clearly not human. Its skin had a subtle iridescent quality, and delicate fin-like structures extended from its temples. According to her scanner, it was alive, but in deep stasis. The pod's control interface responded to her touch, displaying information in the same flowing script she'd seen outside. But among the alien text was something that made her breath catch, a sequence of numbers that could only be mathematical constants. Universal language. Working quickly, she began the process of interfacing her translator with the pod systems. It took nearly an hour before she could make sense of the readings, but what she found chilled her more than the frozen air around her. The pod contained First Scholar Falrix of the Nexari science vessel Luminous Truth. They had been attacked while conducting deep space research, their ship crippled by weapons of unknown origin. As the only survivor, Falrix had entered stasis in hope of rescue. That had been 3 years ago. Raven's hands flew over the controls, beginning revival procedures. "This is Lieutenant Raven Blackwood of the Earth Alliance," she said, knowing her words were being recorded. "I found you. You're not alone anymore." The pod's light brightened, and the frost began to melt. As Falrix's vital signs strengthened, Raven couldn't help but smile. This was more than a rescue. It was the beginning of something extraordinary. She just didn't know yet how extraordinary it would prove to be. The medical bay aboard the Genesis hummed with activity as Falrix regained consciousness. Raven watched through the observation window as the ship's medical officer, Dr. Juniper Hayes, monitored the alien's vital signs. The Nexari's iridescent skin shifted colors like oil on water, a physiological response to the revival process. "Remarkable," Dr. Hayes muttered. adjusting the biosensors. Their cellular structure is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's almost as if their entire biology is adaptable at a molecular level. Thalrix's eyes opened, all three of them. The third eye, centered above the others, moved independently as it took in the surroundings. When he spoke, his voice resonated with an otherworldly harmonic quality that the translators took a moment to process. You found my vessel." His words came through clear, but tinged with lingering disorientation. "How long?" 3 years, 2 months, and 17 days since your last log entry," Raven answered, stepping into the room. "I'm Lieutenant Blackwood, the one who found you. You're aboard the Earth Alliance vessel Genesis." Thalrix attempted to sit up, his movements careful and deliberate. Dr. Hayes moved to assist but hesitated, unsure how to handle their unusual patient. The Nexari managed on his own, the fin-like structures at his temples flaring slightly with the effort. "Earth Alliance," he repeated, testing the words. "Your species was unknown to us. We had detected your transmissions but had not yet made contact." His third eye fixed on Raven, while the other two studied the medical equipment. "There is much to discuss, but first, my people. I must contact them." Raven exchanged glances with Dr. Hayes. "We've been trying to reach the coordinates in your ship's database, but there's been no response." The color drained from Thalrix's iridescent skin, leaving it a pale, translucent white. "No response. That's impossible unless..." He closed all three eyes, his facial features contorting in what appeared to be grief. "The plague. It must have spread faster than we predicted." "Plague." Dr. Hayes stepped forward, her professional curiosity piqued despite her caution. "Your people are suffering from a disease." "We're suffering," Thalrix corrected, his voice heavy. "When I left on our research mission, 30% of our population had been infected. We thought we had time to find a cure. The plague attacks our adaptive biology, turning our greatest strength into our destruction. Our cells begin to mutate uncontrollably." Raven moved closer, her training warring with her compassion. "Is it contagious to other species?" "No," Thalrix answered quickly. "It specifically targets the unique aspects of Nexari biology. We've confirmed it cannot spread to other life forms." He paused, studying the humans with renewed interest. "Your species, you're different. Your genetic structure is remarkably stable, yet diverse. In all our research, we never encountered a species with such variety within a single genome." Dr. Hayes nodded. "Human genetic diversity is one of our species' defining characteristics. It's helped us survive countless diseases throughout our history." "Then perhaps," Thalrix said, his skin beginning to shimmer with hope, "this meeting is not chance but destiny. Your genetic stability could be the key to saving my people, while our medical knowledge..." He gestured to the advanced biosensors he was connected to. "We could offer humanity advances in medical science beyond your current capabilities." The door to the medical bay slid open, interrupting their conversation. Admiral Darius Thorne strode in, his presence filling the room with immediate tension. His cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on Thalrix. "Lieutenant Blackwood," he said, his voice clipped. "The Admiralty Board has reviewed your rescue report. I'm here to inform you that this visitor will be transferred to a secure facility for proper examination." With all due respect, Admiral, Raven stepped between Thorne and her patient. "First Scholar Thalrix is here seeking humanitarian aid. His people are dying. And how convenient that he crash-landed in our territory, offering advanced technology in exchange for help." Thorne's organic eye narrowed. "I've seen too many first contacts turn into invasions to take anything at face value." Thalrix's skin rippled with colors that the translator couldn't interpret, but his voice remained steady. "We offer knowledge freely, Admiral. My people believe that understanding shared is understanding multiplied." "Pretty words," Thorne sneered. "But words are wind. Lieutenant, prepare the alien for transfer." "That's an order." As Thorne turned to leave, Raven caught Dr. Hayes's eye. The doctor gave an almost imperceptible nod. She'd seen something in Thalrix's medical scans, something important. They needed time, and more importantly, they needed to keep Thalrix out of a military detention center. The next few hours would determine not just Thalrix's fate, but potentially the future of two species. Raven had never disobeyed a direct order before, but as she watched Thalrix's third eye track the Admiral's departure, she knew that was about to change. The Genesis's maintenance tunnels weren't designed for comfort, but they made an excellent hiding place. Raven wiped sweat from her forehead as she crawled through the narrow passage, her tablet displaying a real-time feed from Dr. Hayes's lab. The doctor had managed to delay Thalrix's transfer by insisting on additional medical tests, but time was running out. The genetic analysis is complete. Dr. Hayes's voice came through Raven's earpiece. You need to see this, but be careful. There's increased security on every deck. Raven emerged from the tunnel into the dimly lit laboratory where Hayes and Thalrix waited. The Nexari's skin had taken on a deep blue hue, which Raven had learned indicated intense concentration. He stood before a holographic display showing intertwined strands of DNA, human and Nexari. Lieutenant, Thalrix acknowledged her arrival, his third eye tracking the door while his other eyes remained fixed on the display. Dr. Hayes has made a remarkable discovery. Look at this. Hayes pointed to where the two genetic structures merge. The Nexari plague attacks their adaptive genetics, causing uncontrolled mutations. But human DNA contains natural limiters, evolutionary safeguards that prevent exactly this kind of runaway cellular change. If we can isolate these elements. A sudden alarm cut through the air, its harsh tone making Thalrix's temple fins quiver. Raven's tablet lit up with security alerts. Armed personnel were moving through the ship, deck by deck. They're searching for us, Raven muttered, quickly accessing the ship's internal sensors. Admiral Thorne must have realized we're stalling. There's more, Hayes said, her voice dropping to a whisper. I found evidence of tampering in the medical database. Someone accessed files about the Nexari plague hours before we even brought Thalrix aboard. They knew. Someone knew about the Nexari before we found that ship. Thalrix's skin paled. Impossible. Unless. His third eye widened. The attack on my vessel. We never saw our attackers, but the weapons they used. They were specifically designed to disable our systems. The pieces clicked into place in Raven's mind. Admiral Thorne didn't want to secure you for safety. He wanted to silence you. The question is, why? The laboratory door slid open with a hiss. Raven drew her sidearm, but it was Engineering Officer Marcus Wong who stepped through, his dark eyes wild with urgency. Lieutenant, you need to see this. He thrust a data chip toward her. I was running diagnostics in the quantum communications array when I found encrypted transmissions. They're being sent to coordinates outside Alliance space, but the encryption, it's using Nexari protocols. Thalrix moved to examine the data, his fingers dancing over the holographic interface. These are military codes, ones that were stolen during the attack on my ship. You're Admiral Thorne. He's working with the same people who tried to destroy us. Another alarm blared, closer this time. Heavy boots echoed in the corridor outside. We need to move, Raven decided, grabbing essential data tablets. Marcus, can you get us to the shuttle bay? The engineer nodded. There's a maintenance shaft that bypasses the main corridors. But Lieutenant, this is mutiny. If we're caught, two species might be doomed, Hayes interrupted, already gathering medical samples. The plague, the attack on Thalrix's ship, these transmissions, it's all connected. Someone's trying to prevent an alliance between humans and Nexari, and they're willing to commit genocide to do it. Thalrix's skin rippled with bands of silver, a sign of determination, Raven had learned. My people have a saying. Truth, like light, travels in straight lines until forced to bend. They may twist our path, but they cannot change our destination. The door shuddered as someone attempted to override its locks. Marcus moved to a maintenance panel, his fingers flying over the controls. "I can give us 2 minutes, maybe 3. After that." Raven checked her weapon and looked at her unlikely crew: a defiant doctor, a conscientious engineer, and an alien scholar whose people's survival might depend on what they did next. 2 species, thrown together by chance or destiny, now united against a hidden enemy. "Then we have 2 minutes to disappear," she said, helping Hayes gather the last of the crucial samples. "And after that, we have a conspiracy to expose and 2 civilizations to save." The sound of cutting tools against the laboratory door spurred them into action. As they slipped into the maintenance shaft, Raven couldn't help but smile grimly. Admiral Thorne had tried to bury the truth, but he'd forgotten the most important lesson of first contact. When different species work together, they become something greater than the sum of their parts. Their escape was just beginning, and the real challenges lay ahead. But as they made their way through the hidden arteries of the Genesis, Raven knew they had one advantage their enemies didn't: the power of trust between 2 peoples who chose to face the unknown together. The Nexari homeworld hung like a jewel in space, its atmosphere swirling with iridescent clouds that reminded Raven of Thaurix's skin. But the beauty of the scene was marred by the debris of abandoned ships orbiting the planet, silent witnesses to the plague's devastation. "Life signs detected," Marcus announced from the shuttle's sensor station. "Scattered populations in environmental shelters. Maybe a few thousand survivors." Thaurix's temple fins trembled. "So few. But they live. There is still hope." They had barely escaped the Genesis, surviving 3 weeks of pursuit through uncharted space. Dr. Hayes had worked tirelessly during their journey, combining human and Nexari medical knowledge to develop a treatment for the plague. But their arrival had drawn attention. Long-range sensors showed Admiral Thorne's fleet approaching. "We have 30 minutes before they're in weapons range," Raven said, guiding their shuttle toward the largest shelter cluster. "Hayes, is the treatment ready?" The doctor nodded, dark circles under her eyes testament to her endless work. "The human genetic limiters have been successfully merged with Nexari's cellular structures in trials, but we'll need their medical facilities for full-scale production." A transmission cut through their communications, carrying a familiar harmonic tone. "Unknown vessel, you approach the sanctuary of the last Nexari. Identify yourselves." "This is First Scholar Thaurix of the Luminous Truth," Thaurix responded, his 3 eyes bright with emotion. "I return with hope, and with friends who carry the key to our salvation." The landing bay that received them was filled with Nexari, their skin shifting through colors of amazement and hope as Thaurix emerged. A tall figure stepped forward, her elaborate temple fins marking her as a leader. "First Scholar, the High Council believed you lost," she said, then turned her gaze to the humans. "And these are?" "High Counselor," Thaurix bowed. "These are representatives of humanity, a species whose genetic structure may save our people, but we must act quickly. Those who orchestrated our destruction follow close behind." What followed was a blur of activity. While Hayes and Nexari scientists began implementing the treatment, Raven and Marcus worked with the shelter's defenders to prepare for the coming battle. The Nexari's advanced technology merged seamlessly with human tactical knowledge, creating defensive systems unlike anything either species had seen before. Admiral Thorne's voice boomed through all channels as his fleet arrived. "This is your last warning. Surrender the Nexari research and the traitors. The plague must run its course. Humanity cannot risk contamination by an inferior species." Raven took the command center's communications. "Afraid of contamination, Admiral? Or afraid of what happens when humanity realizes we're not alone in needing each other to survive?" She nodded to Marcus, who transmitted their evidence, proof of Thorne's collaboration with xenophobic extremists, his role in attacking Nexari ships, and his deliberate spread of the plague. The transmission went not just to Thorne's fleet, but to every human colony and outpost in range. "Your own people are watching, Admiral," Raven declared. "They're seeing what real contamination looks like. the contamination of fear and hatred, but they're also seeing the cure. On cue, Dr. Hayes's voice came through. Treatment implementation at 25% and rising. Cellular restoration confirmed in all test subjects. The High Counselor stepped forward, her skin glowing with renewed strength. Admiral Thorne, you sought to keep our peoples apart because you feared what we might become together. Look now upon your failure. The shelter's screen showed Thorne's fleet receiving transmission after transmission. Orders from Earth Command, relieving him of duty. Ships began breaking formation, turning their weapons on their former admiral. Hours later, as the combined human and Nexari medical teams distributed the treatment, Raven stood with Thalrix in the shelter's observation dome. Below them, the first cured Nexari were emerging from stasis, their skin shimmering with health and hope. My people have a tradition, Thalrix said, his third eye fixed on the horizon where the sun was rising. When we achieve something previously thought impossible, we do not celebrate the achievement itself, but the path that led to it. The struggles, the choices, the trust given and earned. Raven smiled, watching Dr. Hayes excitedly discuss cellular biology with a group of Nexari scientists, while Marcus marveled at their engineering innovations. Earth has a similar saying, the journey matters more than the destination. Then perhaps our peoples were always meant to find each other, Thalrix replied. Not despite our differences, but because of them. Apart, we were incomplete. Together, Raven finished, we can reach the stars themselves. As if in answer, the iridescent clouds parted, letting the first true sunlight in months shine down on the healing world below. It illuminated not just the end of a crisis, but the beginning of something greater, a future where humanity and the Nexari would face the universe's challenges side by side, their strengths combined, their weaknesses covered by each other's capabilities. The stars above seemed to shine brighter, as if acknowledging that in this small corner of the galaxy, fear had been overcome by trust, hatred defeated by cooperation, and two peoples had chosen to write their future as one story.